Well, me and Harry, we've been having a lot of fun here, and what I've been doing over the last few days with Harry is I've been taking him a little bit out of his comfort zone and into spaces like, if you notice right here, we're up a tree and Harry's confessed to having fear of heights.
Yeah.
So we're about 10 feet above the ground. I just saw this and I thought this is going to be a beautiful place to come and talk. We've also, what have we else have we done? Taking you out of your comfort zone. We've gone mud.
In the water.
We've gone in water. We've gone in cold water. We've covered our bodies in mud as well. But then there's another thing that we want to talk about. So let's put this down here so it's going to be easier for us to talk. Yeah. And there's also, like, in terms of comfort zones, obviously you could say, yeah, we're up in a tree, we're in water, we're in the mud, or we're lying on a bed of nails, and maybe that's going to be like uncomfortable. But then, like, emotionally also, we have certain comfort zones and certain emotions we're not comfortable with. This is a normal thing, yeah? Now, we're
quickly, another thing
okay.
that we said with me is, like, remember you were talking about grief yesterday?
Okay.
And
yeah. So let's come on to that. Yeah, let's come on to that. So, according to Taoism, right, all of life, operates on this system which is called the 5 elements, right? The 5 elements would be, let's say we start with water. Yeah, water feeds wood. Yeah, then we have the wood element, and wood feeds fire. Then we have the fire element, and fire feeds earth. Then we have the earth element, and earth feeds metal, which means that the metal is compacted inside the earth, and it forms over millions of years inside the earth as it's compacted in there. And then the metal creates the minerals, which go into the water. They fortify the water, and then the flow starts again. So we've got this cycle of what we call the 5 elements. Now we can see this in nature, and if we're in a place where, for example, there's no water, there's no wood, all these places are kind of unhealthy environments, because we want actually a nice balance of all of these 5 elements to have like a great place, to be in. And it's the same, like, actually what the Taoists observed is that inside our bodies we also have these 5 elements, and that each 5 element, it gives us an aspect of our personality. So let's start off with our hearts. So in our hearts we have the element of fire. Now, if you've ever sat around a fire, you're going to know, like, how people sitting around a fire talking together, and there's this feeling of connection. And this is what the spirit in our heart makes us want to do, is it literally makes us want to connect with other people. So out of this we get the emotion of love. Now, every emotion has its other side. So let's say the opposite of love is hate. Okay, and love and hate live inside the heart. Then we can move to the next organ, which is the spleen and stomach. And in the spleen and stomach, we have what's called the earth element. So the earth is what makes us centered. It is what makes us grounded. And basically from the earth element, we get the feeling of trust. And the opposite of trust being mistrust. So any dynamic of trust and mistrust is going on within the stomach. And we all know this feeling of butterflies in the stomach. The next organ is going to be the lungs, and inside our lungs is living the element of metal. So metal is like this kind of like precious stones, diamonds, metals as well, which are both useful and decorative. And in the lungs, so we actually, the feeling of sadness, grief and loss resides in our lungs. Now obviously we can hear this and think, oh, that sounds like a place we don't want to be, an unpleasant place we don't want to be. And Harry experienced this the other day when I was trying to get him to tune into the metal element, and I suggested to come into this place of grief. And straight away, first of all, he was uncomfortable, he was kind of giggly, and then he wanted to cry. Now we all have this. If we haven't done work on ourselves to get familiar with the different emotions, we're all going to have that there's certain emotions that we don't want to go through. Now, through grief and sadness, we actually have the ability to start to appreciate what we have around us. So say, for example, if a relative or a friend dies, it also gives us the ability to appreciate more those people that we do still have. And it's very much about our connection with the universe, so connection with the bigger meaning in life. And this is what we get from our lungs through the emotion of actually sadness. And then when we move on from the element of metal, we come to the element of water, which of course is in our kidneys, relates to our adrenal glands, and it relates very much to the feeling of flight or fight and to fear. Now fear, we always think, fear is like a negative emotion, it's overpowering love. And of course there's this big relationship between fire and water, But then fear is what actually allows us to grow and develop. So think about it. If we didn't have fear, we would not be here today, yeah? And fear has some uses. Now, I mean, myself, I'm an extreme sports person. I like going climbing on rocks. I like going surfing. And obviously, one of the main reasons people actually do that is they do that to confront their feelings of fear. And the reason we need to do that is I need to know, like, where maybe it's actually because I do have a lot of fear, but I need to know, where do I stop being safe, and where am I safe, and how much can I push myself to the edge? Now, we all know fear can get into a very, very overpowering place, and even at the moment, collectively as a society, we're having like a huge fear epidemic. And what we can do when we get into a state of fear that's kind of like blocking us from moving, like we're stuck like a rabbit, in the headlights kind of thing, is we can actually just bring in the emotions of peacefulness, stillness, calmness, and gentleness. And when we bring in these emotions, it really just allows us basically just to feel sort of like calm, and to just balance the fear, and to understand it's there for a reason. Like everything negative is there for a reason, but it needs to be balanced. And because the negative emotions, they come from the earth, they're very much about the third dimension and the plane that we're on right now. There's always going to be a lot of them, so we're never going to really need to do work to make ourselves more anxious, more hateful,
just
more
to add
angry.
on to that, I feel like every human being comes in fear is part of duality, and that we exist in the yin-yang balance. And I think actually one really good positive mindset to have is the more fears you've got, the more opportunities you've got to grow and develop your kidneys and develop that power. So you're actually blessed. I mean, if you're born here with less fear, you don't have that opportunity to grow, and you won't know how to teach other people. So I can speak from experience, Jade can. There's a lot of fear that's still inside me that I've overcome, and I've still got long to go, and I'm proud of that, because that's what makes you the warrior, and you can really overcome that emotion of fear and transmute it ultimately to your highest purpose and growth. You're here to evolve as a conscious human being, so be blessed with the amount of things you're afraid of, because that's your opportunity to really...
Because negativity, it gives us the chance to grow and the chance to develop. Because if everything's perfect and everything's peaceful, there's going to be very, very little incentive for us to develop. And then, of course, the last one of these elements that we need to mention in terms of emotions is actually the wood element. So here we are sitting in a tree, and we're also in springtime, and springtime is the time of the wood element. So the wood element is all about growth, and it's all about creativity. It's all about us being here on the mundane world and thinking like, I want to make some great YouTube videos, I want to do a painting, I want to build a house. That's all what the wood element brings us. And these desires to do these things, they're great, but often what happens in life is in various ways we get frustrated, we get blocked. Maybe we're building a house, someone comes and burns the house down, and the most natural feeling to have out of that is anger, frustration. It's almost, if someone is lacking and unable to feel anger and frustration, there's almost something like slightly wrong with you. But the thing is that when something blocks me and I'm able to actually go, this is all about boundaries, and I'm actually able to go to the person, no, that was wrong of you to burn my house down, and stop it, or maybe even hopefully stop him, but before he burns the house down. What I'm doing is I'm creating boundaries, and I'm having healthy boundaries, and that's a healthy form of anger. Whereas if I just let him burn my house and I don't do anything, and then I sit there and I fume, and I'm getting like so angry.
You're building up toxic
and then I
energy.
go back and I like burn his whole house down and kill his entire family. That's like you. Rage, and it's toxic anger, and that is the kind of thing, it's like very, very destructive. And the thing is that because a lot of us, we don't actually have the idea of maybe like how to express like our anger in a positive way, so basically through healthy boundaries, we end up having this problem of like being very passive and rage, and this is like a very negative cycle to get stuck into, because it also stops us from being able to create. But we have these like wonderful emotions that can also allow us to balance out the feelings of anger and frustration, and those
just
are
a quick one on the
actually,
anger. I feel there's a Mark Twain quote that's quite famous, like the only person that loses when you get angry at someone else is you. You're the first person you poison when you get angry, even if it's justifiable in your mind. So you have to understand that you're the one that's losing out by being angry at someone else, because they're not doing what you want. So you're the one that's in control of that anger. It's a choice and decision to move past that. So really, if you want to be peaceful and high vibration, we've got to try and lose those muscles and habits of anger towards other people, because the only thing we can change in this universe is us. So if we're getting angry at other people, we can't change them like that. You just have to accept them as they are, and work on your anger for sure.
Definitely getting stuck in a cycle of anger. it's not a positive thing, but I think also one of the worst things we can do is when we start demonizing other people for being angry or demonizing ourselves for being angry. What we do is we just increase the frustration and we increase the anger, because the anger, just like the fear, is always there. There's always a seed of truth in it. And when we can listen to that seed of truth, then we can grow from it. So in Taoism, we don't say that negative emotions are bad and positive emotions are good. What we say is we want a balance, So there are emotions that we can bring in. Say if we're feeling like fuming about something, or say even, I've been in a situation, say for example, I've been involved in an abusive relationship where I've let someone again and again abuse me. Now I've got out of that relationship and I'm fuming at the person, and I'm fuming and angry at myself for allowing myself to be put through that. There's some powerful, powerful emotions that can actually help to just heal that. And those will be the emotions of kindness, benevolence, forgiveness, and also gratitude. So if I'm actually able to just forgive myself, be kind to myself, forgive myself, be benevolent, and then in the end, just understand the bigger picture and see I had to go through this negative and abusive relationship in order for myself to grow. So in the end, however bad that experience was, it's actually made me stronger, and it actually can become part of my growing and learning experience. So in this way, we can come to embrace all emotions, not just the positive emotions, but the negative emotions. And I think getting a relationship with these negative emotions, not denying the negative emotions, but actually embracing them and really giving love to them. The same way if you see a child and they're crying, they're screaming, and you pick that child up and you hold them and you give them love. And this is actually what we need to be doing to our negative emotions. We don't want to be putting them off to the side, because what happens when we go, oh yeah, I'm never going to be angry, I'm going to repress my anger, is that the anger is stored inside us, and it will come out in destructive ways. So it might come out passive aggressive, it might come out as fits of like uncontrolled rage that's maybe out of personality or seems to be out of personality, or it even can come out in cancers and sicknesses, weight problems. Like there's all sorts of different ways. So it's very, very important to actually hold on to and recognize these negative things, these negative aspects of ourselves, to embrace them, to give them love, to understand where they're coming from. Because actually what happens when we start, for example, demonizing fear, is we push fear into our shadow. And in our shadow, it's going to be there in our subconsciousness. It's going to be acting out in certain ways, and affecting our behavior, but affecting our behavior in ways that we don't understand. So when we consciously pull the negative and we go, yes, I have fear and I embrace my fear. Yes, I have anger, I have worry, I have hatred. And I embrace all these emotions as part of myself. And maybe like it's uncomfortable, for me, for example, as you experienced the other day, to go into that place of grief. For me, it was very, very difficult to really come to a relationship with my anger. It took me years, and I was practicing inner alchemy. I was getting familiar with my emotions, and yet finally one day something happened and I was so angry, and I sat down and I meditated with my anger, and I just embraced and I loved my anger. And what happened inside me was I had this like beautiful energetic explosion with this energy just spreading in the most beautiful way through my whole body. And suddenly I realized what my problem was. I'd gone through life without healthy boundaries, and I wasn't able to put boundaries around myself to protect myself. So I was going into this kind of like timid sort of like, okay, letting people kind of walk on me and abuse me, and then getting into a rage, which was completely actually counterproductive to what my path was.
The anger was like protection from looking at your true self. The boundary was needed so you could be happy, and you weren't putting the boundaries on, so you're getting angry at other people, but really you're angry at yourself for not having the boundaries, maybe. For not for having that in...
I guess it could be looked at in so many different ways. And I would say, that's another way to look at it for sure. But the problem that I had was the anger was telling me I needed healthy boundaries. And because I'd grown up being told that anger was a shameful thing, I needed to repress it. It took me years into being an adult to kind of just finally realize, I needed to just basically embrace my anger, love it, and just put those boundaries there, which society had kind of like not wanted me to have because they didn't want me to be a strong person.
Yeah, so, a quick one on that. With I used to cry a lot, and I used to be my form of self-love, crying, but it was from a victim place, like I'm a victim and why God me. So now I still like crying. I think crying's great, but now I cry from tears of joy and tears of, oh, I understand why. So it's not like even the process of anger per se, because I still cry now, but now I just cry from a better place. Whereas I'm not crying from a victim, now I'm crying for an empowerment. Oh, damn, I'm grateful. So these emotions are strong. It's the same emotion, crying, right? But it's just to transmute it from a dark place, like negative crying victim, to empowerment. Same with anger. Anger, you can either, a lot of people get angry because of empowerment issues. Like, you feel angry because you don't feel powerful as a human being. You feel powerless in that situation, so you get angry. What you don't realize is that by being angry, you can't change anyone else. You can't empower yourself by getting angry. It just doesn't work like that. So that's why we've got to let go of the anger and just let it be, and be still and be calm and transmute it. And ultimately, anger changes people too. Anger is what fueled my journey in fire. Anger at myself for who I was and what I've been through and what I was heading. So angry is good. It's a great transmutation tool, and you must get angry at the beginning of your journey often to change. Be angry, but don't stay angry, and you'll be a great, healthy, and happy person. So
yeah, because we can get angry and we can go off and sort of do a painting or do something really creative, or we can get angry and we can destroy things. And I think all of these emotions, it's like a scale. We can't go, there's fear, there's paranoia, but then there's a million different things on that whole scale. And it's like finding the place, for example, like of being cautious, like we're sitting up here in the tree, and obviously we need to sort of practice a certain degree of kind of like being safe up in this tree. We don't want to fall down out of the tree and hurt ourselves. But if we were stuck on the ground down there and we were like so scared that we didn't even climb up here, we'd be missing out on something quite cool,
Definitely.
So like emotions, I guess what I'm trying to say in this, because the next thing we're going to be talking about is sexual alchemy, which is a powerful way of bringing our sexual energy into our body. But emotions, they are like energy, if you think about it. Anger, it's an energy, but it's like kind of a draining energy if we get into a rage. Love is an energy. All of these are energy, but for us to be a really balanced person, we need to be able to like come into all of these, what we call the 5 elements, or the 5 spirits, the 5 aspects of our personality. We need to be familiar with all these spirits and not locked off from certain parts of ourselves. So for example, not either so afraid we can't go into our water element, or just so in denial of our fear we can't go into it. And it goes with all the elements. And Harry, do you have anything else to say?
I think it's wonderful what Jay's talking about. I'm totally listening. And emotions are key. Don't deny your emotions. Look to the shadow. Be yourself. Be vulnerable. We live in duality. Experience the full range of emotions. Happy, sad, crying, and be empowered. Just keep growing, learning lessons. Don't deny yourself the truth. I think denial is huge. We're angry and we're sad because we're in denial. And the first step is to look to yourself and don't deny who you are, what you've been through, and how much you've suffered, and change and grow and face those fears. Face those fears. A number one growth tip for me is how you grow, face your fears. Like Jade said, I don't feel comfortable climbing up a tree for sure. I always imagine I'm going to die, but that's never the reality. A fear is just something that's imaginary. 99% of fears never come true, right?
And then also just in terms of like, our emotions, one thing we can find like that can be quite a good indicator of like what we need to heal within ourselves is that when we see things within certain people that maybe is like triggering us, irritating us, we can know that these are things we need to work on with ourselves. Like for example, with Harry can be a little ungrounded. So we've been talking a little bit about grounding.
Not my skill, guys. I've got other masteries.
But yes, Harry's working on it, and he's coming along.
You'll be the first to admit that I actually know my strengths and I know my weaknesses, and it doesn't bother me. But I want to grow with it. It does bother me a little bit, so I'm very self-aware.
But even in the days we've been together, and I've been giving grounding techniques to Harry, and there's been changes. But for me, part of my journey is I had to do enormous amounts of work to ground myself. And obviously, like, I'm grounded to a certain extent, but I'm not 100% grounded, because if I was 100% grounded, then I know someone who is, but then Harry could be as ungrounded as he wants, and he doesn't bother me, but sometimes his ungroundedness, it triggers me a little bit. So then I'm to myself like, okay, I need to work on my grounding. So then I'm like, bring my energy down, feel the earth, feel myself centered in my belly, And it's like this, like if we see someone getting angry and we're pissed off at them for being angry, we think they need to repress their anger. What's actually going on is that we're noticing that they're just reflecting to us anger that we've got buried deep inside ourselves.
And that's the power of human connection. Everyone teaches you lessons here in the universe.
And we need to heal this, and everyone we meet, everything we see, every incident that happens, however irritating and annoying, like our day yesterday, which was just a complete flop, because Harry lost his shoe, and then Harry got lost as well as his shoe being lost, and we didn't do any filming, but it was like, in the end, today we're just having a great day filming because we've taken from what happened yesterday and we're getting everything done. And So yeah, Harry.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. This has been an amazing talk. Let's climb down from this tree and give you some more videos. Thank you very much. Cheers.